Tanzania is a nation of many faces and many names. It is often described as a developing nation. But development doesn't always mean change. Rather, development is often the preservation of culture in the face of advancement. It is the preservation of community and cultural values. When considering this interpretation, third spaces are critical for community development. The term third spaces was coined in the year 2000 by American urban sociologist Ray Oldenburg. He defined third spaces as the public places on neutral ground where people can gather and interact. These include museums, churches, and similar places that facilitate community interaction. In Tanzania, third spaces are key to community development. These simple interactions, such as greeting an elder with respect or speaking with strangers as if old friends, preserve the values of the Tanzanian community despite pressure to develop by Western standards. Kahawa Farm is one of many third spaces in Tanzania. Here, different Chaga families work together in the coffee-making process, and critics would say that this process is inefficient or underdeveloped due to the lack of machinery. However, this community has turned their traditional practice into a profitable tourist attraction.
Was buying the coffee for lower price and going to sell it for the higher price. So when the local farmer, they knew that, they was cutting off their own coffee there. In the matter here, as we are using this opportunity of the village to be a destination of tourists. So nowadays, as we are selling it individually, hand by hand.
This is a prime example of preserving culture in spite of pressure to develop by Western standards. In Our Creative Diversity, Javier Perez de Cuellar goes further and explains that development often involves a denouncement of Western values. More specifically, he writes, it had led peoples to assert the value of their own cultural wealth, of their manifold assets that cannot be reduced to measurement in dollars and cents, while simultaneously asserting the universal values of a global ethics. This idea connects to the policies enacted by former Tanzanian President Julius Nyerere, as explained in African biographies. Nyerere advocated for Tanzanians to reject urbanization and return to the agricultural-based lives that the nation traditionally practiced according to the Ujamaa socialism values. Poverty Inc., a film by Michael Miller, expands upon this point. The film features John Rusiahana, an Anglican bishop from Rwanda. Rusiahana explains,
so it becomes a way of colonizing the economies of the poor countries.
The Chaga coffee farmers combat this colonization by creating their own business and embracing third spaces. However, some third spaces have mixed effects. The markets in Tanzania are examples of bustling third spaces that help, yet also hinder, community development. The markets foster healthy relationships amongst local people, but toxic relationships with foreign charities. Robert Lupton explains this in Toxic Charity. He writes, sometimes, when we work so hard to develop efficient systems to dispense charity with clearly posted rules, we overlook the costs in human dignity. In doing so, we develop toxic relationships. This can be seen in the case of dumping at the Memorial Market. In A Brief History of Aid, Dhamsia Moyo expands upon these ideas. Moyo quotes Rwanda's President Paul Kagame stating, much of this aid was spent on creating and sustaining client regimes of one type or another with minimum regard to developmental outcomes on our continent. However, the market does have benefits as a third space. Tanzanians value kindness and friendliness with strangers. As such, one can find customers and sellers greeting one another, and this may lead into an endearing conversation about family, friends, and life in general. Opportunities to come across friends and family are limitless in the local markets. I was fortunate enough to have this experience for myself. Visiting Tanzania has been a life-changing experience. I am forever thankful to have had this experience. Asante sana. The markets in Kahawa Farm demonstrate that third spaces are crucial to development. These spaces protect community values in the face of Western development, because sometimes the greatest development is not what we create, but what we choose to preserve.